All right, guys, today I'm going to show you how to bleed the brake fluid and swap out some of the brake fluid on a 2004 Dodge Dakota. So the first thing I'm going to do is get the car jacked up and get this front wheel off. So when you jack up the car or the truck, you want to find a spot on the frame that's got, some meat to it. And for us, we're going to put this jack right here. This is a nice big structural piece on the frame, and then we'll be able to slide our jack stand up right behind it once this wheel is in the air. So let's get. Now while I'm jacking up the car, a little bit of a break here, what I ended up doing is taking some penetrating fluid and giving these screws a real good soak. My hope is that they don't come out seized, because once they're seized, then if you round them, they're a hell of a time to get off. All right, now to take these wheels off, I've got my jack underneath here, and I've got a jack stand there. I want to keep my jack under here as the main support here, just because of the way it's set up and my ground being a little bit uneven, but I do have that jack stand there. So to break these lug nuts, we got a 3/4 inch or 19 millimeter and my handy dandy makeshift breaker bar. So we're going to get this on and get this wheel off. Oh, and forgot to mention, sometimes it's better to break these bolts loose while it's on the ground. That way the wheel doesn't move on you, and then lift it up. I, of course, forgot, so I was scooching my wheel along when I should have been staying still. All right, I'm gonna break the other side and then get this thing up and back up in the air. So now I got all the bolts loose here. Whoops. Turns out that an 18 millimeter fits this a little bit better, but in using my 18 millimeter, I broke my 18 millimeter or 1/2 inch to 3/8 adapter, so I'm using a 19, and it seems to be working just fine. Haven't rounded anything off quite yet, but we'll see what happens when I have to put the wheel back on. Okay, so I'm just pulling these out, and they have about 12 miles worth of thread to come off, but nothing crazy. There's one, there's two. All right, and that wheel is off. So you guys can take a look here. Here's my brake pads, caliper, and these are my rotors here. They have a good bit of rust on here. This is just from sitting, this little surface rust. But what I'll do is I'll take a wire brush and just kind of scrub this to see if I can get the lie a little bit flatter. And then I'll put just a little bit of anti-seize on these bolts so you can actually see that brown color is them starting to rust, and I do not want that rust to prevent me from taking these lug nuts off in the future. And I'll take a look here. These brake pads aren't in the best of shape. I might go out and get a couple more. I'll take the caliper off and move these around a little bit and just give this whole thing a little bit of TLC. But first I have to get the other wheel off. All right, and that's the second wheel off. So you guys should be able to see this brake bleed screw right in the back. It's the only shiny thing here. So what I'll end up doing is getting my set of tubes out, and we'll crack this open and press the brake pedal, and we'll get some fluid to run through here. Okay, so for you guys to do this, you need a 10 millimeter wrench. This just happens to be a Craftsman, doesn't really matter. I slid this over this line here and was able to just tap that brake bleed screw loose. This is a much better outcome than my last attempt at this, guys. Penetrating fluid, the way to go. So you can see this fluid. It's decently clean. It's not like it's black or anything, but you could tell it's pretty murky. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open the hood. I'm gonna check on the brake master, or the master cylinder here, and see what that fluid is like. And what I'll do is I'll pump the brakes and keep topping off that master cylinder until all that fluid is flushed through. All right, hood's open and the master cylinder is right here. So let me go get my brake fluid. Now the pro tip or good egg tip is to use brand new brake fluid. This truck kind of has 220,000 miles on it, and I want to use this one up. It's only been sitting for, I don't know, maybe a month, so we're gonna let her ride. All right, so I gave the brake about, I don't know, 10 good pumps, and this stuff is coming out really easily. And you can see here's that fluid. And the way to do this as well, see how my tube is slightly pointing upwards? Here's more of a flat look. It's almost flat, but unfortunately I can't adjust this to get into a better spot. What that does is it prevents any air bubbles like that one. I don't know if you can see it right here, from going back down into the brake bleed screw. This job actually is faster with one person if you do this setup this way. The alternative way would be to have another person on the brake caliper here and tighten that once you release on the brake and open it back up when you put your foot on the brake. So that's an alternate way to do it. And just so you guys can see, there's not a whole lot special to this. I'm using my hand here. The important thing is to be careful because I've got the car on jack stands right now. Just press it down, let it fill up, give it a second, press again. And that's what I wanted to come out. You can see that stuff is black, or pretty damn close to it. So we're gonna keep flushing and get all this gunk out of here. And I'll set that back down. Whoopsies. Keep that right there. And the other main reason I'm doing this, guys, is when I was driving, it felt like there was a lot of pedal I had to push through to get to the brakes, to the point where I wasn't super comfortable driving with it. So what this is also doing is it's getting all of those air bubbles out and it's firming up that brake pedal. So I'm about 3/4 done with this front piece here, but I did want to tell you guys the extra good egg way of doing this would actually be to take like a turkey baster or a little pump if you have one, like a little hand pump, and actually suck out the fluid in here before you start. That way you're not pushing any old fluid through the lines. I guess I'm doing it the hard way because I'm just continually putting in new fluid and then forcing it all out through that bleed screw. So we're gonna keep going here. You can see my fluid's a lot cleaner on the inside, but we're gonna keep going just a little bit more on this one and then we'll move on to the other wheel. Okay, so I'm done with this wheel. Here, how about that? I'm done with this wheel and you can see this fluid's a little bit cleaner. Definitely not as hazy. And way down here, we've got all the junky stuff. So I'm gonna take, while I've got this tube on, carefully put this on and tighten up that screw. Snug first and then come back again and try to get it just a little bit tighter. And once that's done, once it's totally tight, I can take this off. Well, actually, I should point this downward like this and let it drain out. That way I don't end up getting a bunch of brake fluid everywhere. And there we go. That is one wheel done. You guys go, I'll show you this setup. So I take my 10mm wrench, I get it on the screw, and then I take my tube here. Try not to touch the paint, especially in places you like to look at, because it's not great for paint. But if you do get some on, you can just take it off with soapy water. Whoops. So got my tube pointing just a little bit up, leading into my container here, which I've just emptied out. So I'm gonna carefully, with the attempt to not strip this or hurt my thumb, and that doesn't want to go anywhere. Let me get my hammer. Okay guys, this bolt was seized on there pretty damn hard. So what I ended up doing is put about 12 coats of penetrating oil on it, or penetrating fluid, and actually hammered on a 3/8, which is basically a 9.5mm. And before you guys say, the screws were ruined, I was already starting to round this thing. So I hammered this on, just broke it loose. Now I'm gonna hope and pray that I can get this fella off. And now that it's loose, I'll be able to bleed any air that just got introduced out of it, you know, right as I bleed the brakes. Would you look at that? Me hammering that on basically turned a 10 mil screw into a 3/8 screw. Actually, the corners got a little bit sharper. Oh well, not perfect, but I'll put some anti-seize on this and really work that penetrating fluid in there, so hopefully I don't have to do this again next time. And for anybody that wants a close-up, hopefully you can see some of these bubbles that were already coming out. Yeah. Ah. And that's this front driver's wheel done. So I took my 10 mil, tightened this up, and then slowly drained out all that fluid. What you can see here, this wet, is actually the penetrating oil I sprayed. So while I had this open, I sprayed another coat of penetrating oil and really let it work itself in, and then tightened it all up. So penetrating oil is supposed to penetrate, protect, lubricate, you know, all that stuff. So we're gonna see how it goes. Till next time. And just so you can see, this one's a good bit cleaner. It's still pretty dark, but it's much brighter, and that's as a result of it getting cleaned out, you know, it getting flushed out. So now we'll move on to the back wheels. And here we are on the back wheels. You can see this one's got back disc brakes, which is nice, makes it easy. Here is our brake bleed screw. You can see it's wet from the penetrating oil that I put on it. So we're gonna set up our tube. And what I'm gonna do here is actually put this tube up like this, or at least try to. See if I can get that squished on. Okay, not exactly genius work here, but we'll see how it goes. We're gonna hope that this one is not seized. And it opens easy. Oh, that's so good. That's so great. Yeah, the important thing with these is do not start with anything other than the right wrench, because holy crap, is that a pain in the butt. All right, so you can see it's already burping a little air, but I'm gonna put that down. I've got it opened up just enough. I don't want to fuss with it too much, so I'm gonna start pumping the brake. Okay, and this one's just about done. I'm gonna give it another spritz of penetrating fluid just to be on the safe side, and we'll be 3/4 of the way done here. How does that Kenny Chesney song go? Yeah, that's the good stuff. That's the good stuff. And the reason I'm doing this now, not exactly a huge deal, it only goes about a 1/4 turn, is I want a little more thread exposed so that that fluid can penetrate a little bit deeper, and once I tighten it up, you know, that penetrating fluid will be further down than it would have been if it wasn't tight. So I'm just gonna snug this up. Guys, don't over tighten these. Stripping these is a pain in the ass. There we go. That's about all she needs. Now I'm gonna carefully drain out this tube and move on to the next wheel. Well, fellas, this one was a pain in the butt. So it turns out that this screw for me isn't a 10 millimeter. It's like 9/32. So I don't know, I might go to the junkyard and pick up the right one, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it, I guess. So anyways, I got this one open. You can see my fluid is already starting to drain. I freshened up this bottle, and I'm gonna start pumping the brake, and we'll get this one rolling too. All right, guys, I'll show you this here. So you can actually see the top has that real murky layer, that real dark layer, and then the bottom is nice and clean. And that's just because of the way my tube sits all the way in the bottom here. So anyways, we got some nice clean fluid coming out of this, at least for now, at least enough to make me happy. I closed her up and this job's all done. So all that would be left now is to put your screw caps back on, put your wheels back on the front, and call it a day. So thanks everybody, bye.